Hi. So, wow. Okay, that I don't know how to follow that presentation. I'm just going to ask Chuck a few questions, and then about 15, 20 minutes, we're going to open up to audience questions. So, y'all get your questions ready. And so excited to be here. That was so beautiful and so inspiring. I loved it. And yeah, so, I mean, Camp Damascus is such a beautiful book. And, I feel like I went into it with certain expectations because it's a book about conversion camps, like gay conversion camps, and you kind of know what to expect normally from a gay conversion camp story. Like, we just recently rewatched But I'm a Cheerleader. I just watched the movie They, Them, and like usually there's like a format where somebody gets sent to a gay conversion camp and then it slowly gets more sinister. And this just completely like turned that formula upside down and then like danced all over the pieces. So I don't know, what made you decide to kind of take a different path with this idea?
Wow. I think when you're writing horror for a marginalized community, for me it is queer community and neurodivergent community is kind of where I think I can maybe lend a voice. You kind of have to consider in the genre of horror, even if you have a good story to tell, what are you accomplishing by doing that? Are you re-traumatizing buckaroos who are already living real trauma every day, and do you want to contribute to that? I will say there is a valid way to do that. There are plenty of, for example, queer artists who write very dark, I would say traumatizing things, and that is actually okay. There's an artistic place for that. But where I wanted to sit is to write something cathartic, to write something that anyone who read it, if they made it through the dang roller coaster ride, they felt uplifted, and that it can kind of, there's different types of horror, and they're all valid. I kind of divide them into two sections of grueling horror, which is just, it's kind of like spicy food or a big dang roller coaster. You're kind of saying, what can I put myself through? And that is okay, because when you finish it, you think, wow, this character had a bad outcome, but I'm still alive. And so that's kind of a celebration of life right there. But sometimes the celebration comes right on the page in maybe act 3 or halfway through, and it's cathartic horror. And that's when they turn the tables, and there's a big kind of feeling of release and releasing that tension. Both are important. In fact, the way horror works is you don't know which one you're going to get. And my personal interest is in cathartic horror. And I think when writing for a kind of, like I said, a marginalized community, I just wanted to contribute to that part of it. And so that meant writing, definitely coming at a conversion therapy story from a different angle. Like you said, it could be very easy to kind of just go through what that is like, and we know that story because that's real life, so I kind of want to twist it around a bit.
Yeah, and I mean, part of what's so effective about Camp Damascus is that it kind of deals with some really heavy, intense, scary stuff that's going on in the world right now. Like, it's hard to take these real life, bigots and oppressors and kind of portray them realistically. They start to seem just like weird. And part of what I loved about Camp Damascus is how low-key kind of bizarre and strange it is in parts. Like, I don't want to give any spoilers, but right away you start seeing some stuff that you're like, whoa, okay, that is not what I was expecting. Thinking specifically of the red polo shirts and stuff, which no spoilers, but it's pretty weird. And like, do you think that's the only way to kind of talk like, is it like using like a heightened metaphor and like an exaggerated kind of more bizarre, surreal thing to kind of capture the reality of it? And was there a version of the book where you went bigger and weirder and more over the top and dialed it back?
And that's a great question. Actually, so along with Tingler, a lot of buckaroos, I say this all the dang time, but I have, I think, very unique sensibilities, and my Tinglers are actually not, I understand that I kind of write I can be funny if I want, but I don't really see those as comedy, and it's kind of the same. I think that my sensibilities are so unique that they often come across as maybe surrealist, but really it's kind of just me thinking, okay, that's a pretty normal way, and that's a bit of a gift. I find out later that everyone says, wow, that's a very strange story about threesome with a Mothman mailman, and then I say, that's just a great fantasy. What do you mean it's a silly story? That sounds wonderful. So I think Camp Damascus was maybe it's a gift for my horror because I think everyone reading it will, maybe if you kind of look between the lines, and I'm sure you did, you kind of start to notice that at the start of the story, there's all these things that seem like they kind of could never mesh together. And then by the end, when there's all these reveals that start to happen, it's kind of the fun thing is realizing, oh, this whole time there was maybe a coherent web that seemed very strange at the beginning. I don't want to do spoilers, but I love the design of the and this is the first chapter. In the very I can give away a first chapter thing, is that the demons are wearing red polos. And actually, I will say, I don't want to go into complete detail, but for instance, that specific example has everything to do with a critique of capitalism, actually. I like it that certain things you say a critique of this and everyone applauds, and you say a critique of capitalism and everyone goes, yep, there we go. That's a very specific type of applause. Everyone nods their head. Yes, I know. Okay, yes, that's my answer. Sorry, I ramble a lot, but I guess you're all here to hear it. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And I don't know. I mean, I used to sing in church choirs. I sang in church choirs for many, many years. I was in churches for many years. And there's a lot about religion that I think is really positive and beautiful. And one of my favorite things in Camp Damascus is you have this kind of ongoing debate between Rose and one of the other characters, Saul, over whether you can keep any of the good parts of religion, or if the fact that so much religion, tortures us in the name of homophobia and bigotry, whether that means you have to just reject religion and belief in God entirely. And I'm wondering how, do you have a religious background? I don't know if you don't want to get too personal, but how do you respond to, how do you kind of connect to that debate?
Well, I think, the book is not an anti-religion book. I would say it is an using religion or belief or spirituality as an excuse for hate, as an excuse to kind of interpret a story any way that you want, and to kind of remove the blame from yourself. And so that's kind of what it is. I'm personally agnostic. I pretty much have been my whole dang life. But and a lot of things I drew from were just experience of, I have some good buds. I traveled, and we were talking about this before, I traveled around the dang country for a very long time. A lot of buckaroos I don't talk about that much, but I'm basically living on the road for a couple of decades of my life, and in that I met a lot of buds, and I hung out with, even though I was not religious at all, some evangelical buds at a pretty young age, and made friends, and I thought, well, your way is very strange, but I guess we can hang out. And so some of the experiences in the book are directly from that. There's some root beer keggers in the book, and I went to a couple of root beer keggers, including one, I am not lying, that the police came and broke up, and everyone said, I like the applause was like, there's definitely some buckaroos, we know that when the police break up the root beer kegger. And the police came, and I remember everyone saying, "Oh no, you can't. This is not a minor in possession situation. This is root beer." And the police going, "What, you expect us to believe that you are having a den kegger with a root beer?" And they said, "Yes, we do." And they checked, and then they were very confused. And then trotted on home. So I had a lot of experiences like that, and I also think, to go back, you had a very good initial question about this too, of kind of creating, giving these characters a little less kind of a cartoonish way. I think that that kind of is where the most exciting stories are. It would have been very easy to write this about some kind of hardline conservative church, and I think it's so much more interesting and so much more sinister if they're kind of at least pretending to be more a cool liberal church, and kind of give like a sort of balance. I think, to draw from one of my inspirations, I just love Jordan Peele, and I think, oh yes, Jordan Peele really helped me to go back to your how do you write for horror for a marginalized community that's already being traumatized. I wasn't sure if I could even write horror novels because I didn't want to do that, and then I remember seeing Get Out actually and thinking, oh wow, there's a really amazing way to create a catharsis in the watcher. And the big lesson that I got from Get Out actually, and the most genius part of that movie is that the family is a liberal family. Mm-hmm. It is,
oh yeah,
when they go in and I said, I would have voted for Obama a third time. That is so because it would be so easy to make that movie about just this openly kind of outwardly racist family and do that, and I think it's so exciting to kind of explore the nuance in those characters. So that's kind of what I wanted to do at Camp Damascus.
And it's interesting, I was going to bring up Get Out because I remember reading that there was a version of the script of Get Out where, spoilers for a movie that's been out for like 6 years, but there was a version of Get Out where they didn't escape at the end, where the main character gets caught and, he's going to have his brain cut open. That's where the movie ends. And, it wouldn't be cathartic in that way if he didn't get out at the end of Get Out, if he didn't actually escape and win. And so for you, the catharsis is like kind of the point. It's kind of the point of the story.
Yeah, and I will say that I talk about timelines. Now. We have no idea how the things are going to affect other things. If he would have made that choice, I honestly don't think there would be a Camp Damascus. I think that you can chart him deciding we're going to go for catharsis and create a moment of joy. I think there is an important place for art that is difficult to get through and that hurts your dang soul. That's part of the human experience, part of the artistic experience. But for me, what interests me is there is so much queer trauma. I want to write about queer joy, even if it's horror. And that can sound weird to me trot out here and say, well, I want to write about queer joy. So you of course, what genre I went to, horror. But I just find, I talk about proving love all the time. And it's very easy to prove love on a dang sunny day. When you're trotting through the park and everything's going great and you feel healthy and happy, very easy to take some of your time and prove love to a bud who needs it. The real, interesting part where it shines the brightest is in darkness. It's in those hard days and those difficult stories. So that's why I wanted to do horror, is because, if I'm going to spend my time proving love is real, let's go where it's just going to light up everything. And you got to do that in the dark.
Yeah. And so I love, one of the things I'm reading a lot of sci-fi and fantasy right now because I'm doing book reviews, and one of the things I'm loving is that we're getting a lot of novels with characters, protagonists who aren't like your standard protagonist, who maybe have a disability or are not reacting to things the way that, Jack Reacher would react to every single thing. They're not flying an airplane off a cliff and then parachuting into a forest fire or whatever all the time. I love Rose. I think Rose is a really terrific protagonist, and I love the fact that her autism is kind of part of her character and part of how she deals with all the scary stuff that's happening to her. I have noticed there was another person who just wrote a novel with an autistic protagonist called Citadel, and I saw on her Instagram she was saying that she gets emails from autistic people who are I feel so seen by this character, and then 5 minutes later she'll get an email from another autistic person saying, this is not my life, this is not a good portrayal of autistic people. And she'll get the same reaction from two different autistic people. So
yes,
obviously you mentioned that you're autistic yourself, but how do you deal with that aspect of representation when there's so many different ways of being?
Well, my the two things I draw from the communities that I belong to in that way are being on autism spectrum and being bi. So both of those exist on a spectrum. So I guess I kind of have a easy time navigating those, because that's just my place, is these sort of spectrum based communities. I would say that also because of that, and because I'm very good at neurotypical masking, and as if there are bi buckaroos in here, let's give it up for the bi buckaroos. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
So, as you know, if you're in a hetero-presenting relationship, there's kind of some erase. You can feel erased by that, and so I have the same way, and because of that, my personal journey through both of those things was that it was never. It really was never difficult on my life. It has always been a blessing to me. My autism is a blessing. It helps me write very fast. When I realized I was autistic and then was diagnosed later, I celebrated. I thought, dang, David Byrne's my favorite musician. He's autistic. I'm in the coolest club in the dang world. I couldn't dang believe it. I was celebrating. And then you hear stories from other buckers who are diagnosed with autism, and it just tears their dang life apart. So I think what's important for me is not to tell every buckaroo's story on the sexuality and gender spectrum or the neurodivergent spectrum. I just really want to tell the version of mine, and I had to learn that, and that's probably why I'm so drawn to queer joy and neurodivergent joy, is that I felt bad telling those. I felt bad joining these conversations for a very long time because I didn't have any trauma with them. It was all joy. And eventually what I realized was, for young buckaroos trotting around, or not old buckaroos trotting around, I really think we need to have examples out there of buckaroos saying, hey, I know it was hard for you, and I respect that, and that is so important. I'm going to lift up your story too, and I'm also going to tell mine, which is a very joyful one. And then we can have all these different examples of these experiences, because they are all on a spectrum. There's there's no right or wrong way to be autistic or queer.
Yeah, so we're going to open it up to audience questions in like a few minutes, but one final question from me. Actually, here in San Francisco, like what you said about queer joy made me think about this. We have San Francisco has a huge tradition of flamboyant queer performances and queer everything, and I've done a little bit of that myself, and oh what? That was not okay. Thank you. But we also have there's some queer respectability politics. There are some queers who are very much we need to be normal, we need to be mainstream, we need to conform so that people will accept us. And why do you think it's important to be flamboyantly queer and to be out there and not just kind of just try to be quiet and
that's a good question. I actually think for me, and I think that's one of those questions where it kind of goes back to what I said, is that there isn't a right way. So I don't like to say what others should do. I just like to say what I need to do. And maybe if that resonates with someone else, they can say, I'm going to draw from that. And for me, the answer of that is so obvious. It is, what other way is there? There's no other way to be. This is me. I'm going to be myself. And any other version of that, or discussion of how should we be, how should you be, but I'm going to be myself, and that's all I can do. There's no choice.
I love that. Thank you.
So before we go into questions, we're having a slight safety issue. Which
oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh, wow. Oh, dang.
Oh, my God.
Oh,
right.
There's a secret. Yes. They knew there was a
danger averted.
Yes.
It takes a village.
They're trying to stop the queer agenda.
Who has a question? All right, let me go right here.
Thanks. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how your neurodivergence helps you in your writing process. I'm also neurodivergent, and I just found out I love writing, but my process is so different from everyone else that I know that writes.
That's a great one. So process, I've been, I'm doing Camp Damascus, I'm doing all these interviews. I kind of started to realize that the way that I do everything, you're really not supposed to do it that way. And I've just kind of said, heck off. I'm going to do it however the heck I want. And there's a lot of writing rules that I'll just say, and I think I'm going to make a point to say my process. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to prove to everyone that there is no right process, and that a neurodivergent process, if anything, that's going to give something real honest and unique and exciting. So here's the examples I've been using. Number one, everyone talks about how do you lead, like what drives the story. It used to kind of be a long time ago, plotting, and then it was character. Everyone says character has to lead the story, and that's pretty dang good advice. For me, character does not lead my story. It is always message and it is meaning. And you are not supposed. I'm going to just tell you, if you're hanging out with serious people, you're supposed to say, "No, I just." Let the characters go where they go. I'm a very smart writer. And that is true. It really works. But I'm just going to be honest and say, you know what? The way my brain works, I think about message. I think, what am I giving the reader? They've dedicated their time to me. I'm going to focus on the point of this and make sure that if they give me their time, I'm giving them a little letter of my thoughts in return. And you're really just kind of not supposed to say that. There's all kinds of other things that I've just kind of realized. Oh, here's the next one. We're in a dang bookstore. It is very hard because of my neurodivergence. I do not read very often. I've been getting into dang audiobooks, which are very good for me. But when I read, all I can think about is what I would write. I write all the dang time. I write all day. My neurodivergence helps me in that I can hyper focus on writing and write a dang whole Tingler in 24 hours and dang 4 hours and then got to wait for it to publish. But I write very fast. And so all of my influences are film and music and visual art. David Byrne, I brought it up. That David Byrne is probably my biggest writing influence, the music of David Byrne. And so to go into these book tours and say, yeah, well, I actually don't read that much. I get a lot from music and film. Not supposed to say that. And so the point of all this is that, that's my process. And we're all here. I've clearly had some success with just saying heck off to all the things that you are not supposed to do. So if you have your own neurodivergent way or any other way in your process that you find resonates deep inside of you and you can feel it, that's all that matters. Just don't let anyone else tell you, because there is no right way to make art.
So my question, sorry, I'm way back here. Hello. Something I struggle with my own neurodivergence is how do you put yourself out there, right? Like, okay, I've written stuff, now what? And then that trying to get that feedback or the public perception, navigating that. How do you navigate that constantly? Well,
yes, it's funny. Having a mask certainly helps. But I will also say, I don't know, I have a blinding confidence in myself. I don't know why. I probably shouldn't, but it served me well. I honestly think the real answer, if I think about it, is just kind of realizing that, art especially, let's talk about creativity. I really mean what I say about there is no right way to do it. And so I think if you are creating something, the only one who can kind of measure, this timeline can measure the technical success of it, but really what matters is kind of your expression of it, and the only person who can ever measure that is you. And I think once you really internalize that and realize, if I put this out here and nobody likes it, if I am honest and I've really pulled something out of me, there's really nothing anyone can say, because they are not right. There is no correct art. It is whatever your honest expression is. So kind of internalizing that, I think once that happens, you can really do anything.
Hi. I think I first encountered Tinglers like back in the heyday of people doing self-publishing on Amazon, and we were all like, what the fuck is this? It's so awesome. And we were all passing it around. And things have changed so much since then on Amazon, in publishing. And I wonder if you could just talk about how that's changed the way you are publishing. Like, how has it changed, and where do you see yourself going next?
Yes. Well, I mean, this is my first traditionally published novel, and so that's a big jump. I think that with Tinglers, really what that is if something's, if I have a feeling or even if something's kind of in the news, I have this platform where I can just kind of translate my feelings about it into art and just put it out there, and it's out the next day, which is so fulfilling and exciting. And I also, I still do that even though I'm on a dang book tour. I am fortunately, I signed a contract where I traditionally publish horror novels, and I can still write all the dang Tinglers I want. And that was a very important part of, that was a very important part of my dang contract. I wouldn't have signed one without that. So I get to do both. But I would say the big difference is timing. Camp Damascus, I wrote it 2 dang years ago when it came out last week. So 2 years versus a 24-hour turnaround is a lot to get used to. But what I have found, I was kind of worried about it. I thought, is this even going to be relevant? And it's very relevant. And I think the reason for that, honestly, is because the devils and the dang scoundrels who are anti-LGBTQ, these problems are systematic. They work in cycles because they have very low imagination, and they kind of just do the same thing over and over again. So it's not like after 2 years it's going to be that different. If you look at, back in the early 80s, 70s, what the dang scoundrels said about gay buckaroos, they say the same thing about trans buckaroos now. It's literally a dang Mad Libs. It's exactly the same. So I was worried, 24-hour turnaround time, going to 2 years, but it's going to be 2 years later, 20 years from now, they're going to be saying the exact same thing about somebody else. They have no imagination. So, fortunately, unfortunately, because these problems are systematic in the way that they just operate, these stories stay relevant in kind of a haunting kind of way. It's very strange.
Thank you. So I wanted to ask you something particularly about the evolution of Tinglers. One of the things that has been really amazing to watch is the way that you have expanded from what were a lot of kind of gay buckaroo stories to hearing feedback about, I wish there were ladybug stories, or I wish there were ace stories or aromantic stories. And I'm always struck by how kind you are and thoughtful in your response to folks who are like, I don't see myself in the stories. But I know that that's put you fairly far afield in terms of the things that you identify as. I wonder if you'd speak to how you process that information and how you work to kind of expand that, because it's one of the magnificent things I think about the Tinglers.
If I look into myself, maybe it does come from at a young age, trotting around the country, meeting all kinds of buckaroos. It maybe comes from, I exist on a sort of a sexuality spectrum, and I don't talk about. I kind of did one Tumblr post about this, but also I think my dang gender is actually there's a spectrum going on there as well that I kind of talk about a little bit, and I'll kind of explore that more as I go. So I kind of in my own personal life have I just am dipped into all these places, which I guess I can just maybe empathize with and understand. And then the other thing is I'm very blessed to be in self-publishing in a way, because, if it's a community that I'm not super familiar with, I have a big social media platform. I can say, hey, I'm thinking about writing about this. What does everyone think about this? And get really good feedback. And just listen. I mean, honestly, the short answer is you just listen. That's the easy answer. But I have that, and then listen, and then if I publish, because it's self-published, if it comes out and someone sends me a dang DM or something and says, oh, this part, it was kind of felt weird, or this, I don't know about this, I'll just rewrite the book. I'll just change the section and say, okay, you know what, we're going to change that. I actually am Gay T-Rex Law Firm Executive Boner. Pause for applause. That I think was one of my very early Tinglers, and it was kind of I won't say satire. Well, maybe it was kind of looking at the dynamics of something like 50 Shades of Grey and kind of commenting on that. And I don't think I was as very good writer back then to talk about those issues. And so I think there were some problems of consent with that Tingler. And I've always kind of thought about that, and in the back of my head thought, I'm not super happy with that one. And so, a couple of years ago, I took it off sale, and I spent some time with it and talked to some buds, and then I just rewrote it, and then I republished it. So I think just being around to kind of listen and to be open to learning, that what you can accomplish just doing that is pretty amazing.
Hi. Sorry in advance if I ramble. That's how my autism and ADHD works.
We are already connected. That is okay. Ramble all you want. I know this
level.
way.
But early in your presentation, when you were talking about malign genres and how that kind of relates to this, in my mind, kind of false dichotomy between the body and the mind, that just made me think about how just globally people are just so disconnected from their bodies. Like, it's enforced by like capitalism and like emotional just deadening. Yeah, I mean, the problem is just emotional deadening, and nobody is being taught how to access their emotions, sit with their emotions, be in touch with themselves, their emotions and their bodies, all of that. And I'm interested in hearing your thoughts about how your work might help, and I guess the general message of love is real. Just helping people kind of overcome that social conditioning.
That's a very good question. I have a short part of the presentation dedicated to it, but you are correct. You could extrapolate that so dang far. Like I said, the book is not, Camp Damascus is not supposed to just be a big critique of religion as much as religion for hate. But if you think about something like religion, the way that if you really think about a lot of what's handed down and the way it's interpreted is very anti-body. It is the whole thing is, how are we going to not let our bodies do what they were kind of created to do? And that's dang a 2,000-year-old book based on stories that are even older than that. So for a very long time, kind of the powers that be in all of their forms of organizing society have kind of decided we are going to limit what our bodies do. And I just really think that has been so destructive. And you can kind of trace back so many societal problems to that. I do think, there's probably a balance, and it's going to change for everyone about how much you want to kind of, address both of those sides of yourself and stuff. But I think that those are personal choices. That's not something that we need a systematic version of. So I think that you are right in that can be that web of kind of being anti-body. Even from things like abortion rights, and it is just the conservative side of things is very anti-body. body and want to control other people's bodies. So I think you're right. The more you think about it, the more kind of terrifying it is. And, what we can all do to kind of stop it is everything in our own way. We are all creators. I create a book. Anyone else can create a walk in the park or a thought in your head. We're all creating 1,000 different things right now. So I can't really tell you all what you need to do to kind of step up against that. But whatever you're creating and whatever feels right coming out, we're all going to have this choice of, can I make something that's going to prove love, or can I make something that's not? And it's just a simple choice that we make every day, and I think we can all do it because we all have unique ways and we can all help.
Hey, yeah. So I think you mentioned earlier sort of wanting to write about queer joy and sort of being drawn towards horror as a vehicle for that, and that being maybe kind of counterintuitive at first glance. But it feels, I guess, very natural to me as somebody who, say, I don't know, I'm remembering like watching An American Werewolf in London for the first time a little while back, and like seeing, say, this sequence is like, oh no, you are losing your humanity, and like, this is supposed to be terrible or horrifying or kind of body horror, and just being like, oh my god, puppy. Yeah. And I'm kind of curious, what do you think it is about horror and monsters and cryptids that seems to resonate so deeply with a lot of parts of the queer experience?
Wow. I think that's a very good question. I think horror as a genre, as with all the kind of malign genres, there is an honesty there, and that I can't, as I said, the queer experience, it's all different. It is not a monolith, but I definitely think that for me, my expression of queerness and what I connect to in that is pretty dang punk rock. And I think that horror and stuff, I just started by saying, well, this is just me, I don't want to speak for anyone else, and I said that, and you can't see it, I'm looking at it, the whole crowd just went everyone silently in unison. But that's kind of it really is to me, and so I think there's an element of that in horror because we are playing with that raw honesty, and so I think that's why those stories kind of resonate with queerness, is they're both there's a punk rock kind of thing to them that personally is that's where I like to dance around a lot. So yes, I think that's part of it.